Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Peter Mueller, and I, along with my colleague Susanna Richter-Wills, will be leading today's webinar, Transform Document and Image Processing with Collective Intelligence for Transportation and Logistics. A quick rundown of our agenda for today. I'll begin by covering some food for thought topics about why document digitization is a top business priority for transportation and logistics companies. Next, we'll look at some general challenges with transportation and logistics documents, followed by a review of supply chain application architecture coupled with collective intelligence. After that, I'll introduce collective intelligence as a concept generally and hand over to Susanna to share how collective intelligence can be a crucial tool for achieving highly accurate outputs with transportation and logistics documents. She's going to go over some use case examples and share the benefits provided using collective intelligence. With this stage set, we're going to bring in a ScaleHub colleague and transportation and logistics subject matter expert, Dave Bennett. He's our VP of Strategic Accounts at ScaleHub, and we're going to do a Q&A interview session with Dave. He's got 20 plus years of experience in the ECM and document management industry, and over the course of his career has worked with large transportation and logistics companies such as UPS, ArcBest, DHL, to name a few. After the interview, he and the team together will be happy to answer audience questions with you. If there's additional time, we will go into a what's next section and share the future of collective intelligence for transportation logistics, talking about computer vision. Note that today's webinar will be recorded and will be shared with all registrants. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat threads, either in LinkedIn or YouTube, and we will answer during the Q&A session. With that, let's go ahead and get started. So in the T&L world, we all know paper is still ubiquitous. According to a UK House of Parliament report, 25 billion documents are created globally per year for international container shipping. With this amount as the backdrop, Parliament is trying to address a law meant to allow quicker and easier use of electronic documents, which now has been strictly paper-based for accountability reasons. They are setting the stage for more electronic document processing, but the e-documents still must meet certain proofs of accuracy and security to be allowed. Digitizing is the goal, but if there are any data input mistakes anywhere along this chain, then digitizing has not done its job. How would such data inaccuracies affect the downstream value of this data? Important here is to have all data points at every step achieve 100% accuracy for all stakeholders. Otherwise, it's a huge risk to the entire system. McKinsey, on the other hand, has reported that single shipments often require 50 sheets of paper with an exchange of 30 different stakeholders. Having this many documents at each step along the supply chain requires, of course, accuracy, and certainly digitization facilitating the exchange will help unlock new potential. Finally, the Center for Strategic and International Studies shared that digitizing and automating ocean shipping documentation could save the sector a total of $38 million every year. This is certainly an admirable goal for business-critical documents. However, many T&L companies still hesitate to leave paper processing fully behind due to fear of inaccurate data. Which leads us to the next topic: where are the majority of transportation and logistics companies in their automation digitization journey? Many transportation logistic firms, in an effort to automate their business in the customer supply chain or direct shipping services, are only beginning their journeys. As our friend Alan Peltz-Sharp at Deep Analysis shared with us, supply chains depend heavily on processing mountains of business-critical documents, and therefore a focus on improving their digital transformation journey is very, very high. Whether we're talking bills of lading, certificates of origin, import-export documents, or other financial documents in the loop, such as invoices, statements, delivery notes, there are lots of documents involved in every single transaction, at every single step along the supply chain, from sourcing materials to receiving a product at the end of the road by the customer. Effectively managing and processing those documents can be very costly. So moving up the ladder towards speed and data accuracy coupled with complete transparency of the process is super crucial. Even minor transcription errors can generate missed, inaccurate, delayed, aborted, or returned deliveries, which can turn result in expensive disputes between parties. Of course, having higher automation levels with true data accuracy alongside short turnaround times will win the day. But how do transportation and logistics companies get there with the backdrop of a paper-based system? Currently, most transportation and logistics companies are past pure employee key from image, landing somewhere in between an OCR solution plus employee verification and OCR plus an AI system plus maybe a BPO doing verification. Most of them are working on their first attempts to use OCR, AI, and mobile technology for processing documents in their ecosystem. Of course, adding an EDI and then even blockchain increases processing and accuracy speeds for the process, but still does not nudge forward speed and data quality for the paper-based inputs, which in turn creates the inevitable exceptions and potential errors in the system. For paper-based inputs, AI and automation alone will not guarantee speed of processing when striving for fast turnaround times, nor will it reach near 100% data accuracy. This is because, as we all know, transportation and documents by definition are varied and difficult to process and so present challenges overall. Let's now discuss some of these challenges and why they cause automation rates to be so low. Certainty of data accuracy is not guaranteed when processing transportation and logistic documentation because we're dealing with either fully unstructured or highly semi-structured documents such as bill of ladings, waybills, commercial invoices, packing lists, certs of origin, dangerous goods docs, and more. All of these doc types examples have a number of common challenges when attempting straight-through processing via an automation solution. A few worthy of mention are large amounts of handwritten documents seen in transportation logistics, image disruption, if we think about stamps on documents printed over data, smudged data, for example. Oftentimes we'll see sleeves obscuring data from packages and creating poor images. And then couple that with poor supply chain master data for auto matching, and you have a system that is hard to process quickly. Therefore, all of the above and all of these topics cannot be trusted to automation and IDP solutions alone. So the result is a large volume of exceptions that must be handled and reviewed. If the exceptions are not handled properly, then bad data can enter the system and create bottlenecks and continued slowdowns. This is where collective intelligence included in the mix can be a boost to guarantee accuracy and speed. With that, let's go over how collective intelligence can handshake with an example supply chain architecture to cover all document exceptions. One of ScaleHub's good partners, Your EDI, has developed a supply chain and logistics iPaaS service that manages data, integration services, and connectivity for transportation and logistics companies. This type of tool enables the training partner ecosystem to be nimbly integrated within their own clients' TMS or supply chain applications connected to the training partner integrations. As shown earlier, as part of the digitization journey, EDI and messaging data are standard approaches for freight transportation and logistics companies to exchange data for all means for transferring data between carriers, shippers, and buyers. Even when EDI is used, large companies still must take into consideration paper documents as part of their end-to-end supply chain fulfillment. Connecting in paper or electronic documents to the process with certainty of the data accuracy is the only way to transform the process fully. And important is achieving 100% or at least near 100% data accuracy to complete all the processes in the EDI and messaging platforms. With collective intelligence in the mix, transportation logistics companies can ensure this. As you see here, collective intelligence as a managed service sits alongside the Your EDI service and is the outlet valve for receiving and perfecting all paper-based data points needed to move along the process. These documents can be sent from any trading partner service or from the end customer, Collective intelligence receives the documents, processes them, and sends back perfected data for further downstream processing. With this in mind, let's now go into collective intelligence in a bit more detail. So what we see here is the typical automation platform and how we as a company augment that system. So when we're looking at the disruption of a traditional capture model, you have the automation curve, and automation achieves really great results from the beginning. What collective intelligence does is disrupts that and stops the cost growth with its own AI and looping in a human in the loop. So together, those two pieces and components using crowd workers and human intelligence coupled with AI disrupt the traditional capture model and reduce costs and exceed the traditional automation rates to achieve nearly 100% accuracy. Artificial intelligence and the concept of artificial intelligence is discussed by MIT even, and it explores how people and computers can be connected so that collectively they act more intelligently together than any one person, group, or computer has ever done before. Collective intelligence combines artificial intelligence with human intelligence, and coupled together, they bring together really stellar results, pristine results that continually improve the accuracy of the data over time. Bringing this concept into transportation and logistics really gets the data and the processes to the next level. I'm going to pass it off to Susanna now to discuss collective intelligence and how it is used specifically for transport and logistics. Susanna?
Thank you, Peter. Yes, so Peter already talked about it. We talk about here the paper side of things, and to create actionable data out of the documents that are part of a process when required. So on time, in the right quality, at the right time, at the right point in time as well. And it can be several situations where collective intelligence is being utilized. So it could be that there is an exception to the traditional automation process, that an exception is being created, for example, because of handwriting. It can be that there is a bypass created to the normal work in order to allow for certain document types to be processed that are not yet part maybe of the digital supply chain process that I have implemented. It can also be that collective intelligence can help at the beginning of an automation process to actually train an AI, train machine learning algorithms to get up to those automation rates that may be required to make it a streamlined process in a sense. At the end of the day, what collective intelligence does works similar in the same way. So we also always start with at the beginning of normalizing the input. Nowadays, documents come from many different channels, and the most fastest growing one in the TNL world is the mobile part of it. And with mobile comes a lot of challenges within the quality of the data. So Peter talked about those disruptive elements on documents, such as stamps and so on, which are also in the way of automation, but it comes already with the input format that is being created and is being put in where you cannot actually rely on any standards anymore. So normalizing the input has once more become very important in this process. And this is the first part that is being done in the collective intelligence process. Thereafter, it's all about identifying with the AI the document types or the process types that are being supported by the data that has to be extracted. So classification needs to be carried out, and the preparation of the remaining tasks for the human to come into the loop. As Peter explained, the human in the loop in our case of collective intelligence comes in the form of crowd workers. And there are many of them. So we have this really great advantage of helping TNL companies with a very, very fast process. And this has to happen. I mean, if you think about you're in the process of having shipment data that have to be processed prior to the next process steps being physically created, then there is no time allowed for that process really, and you need to parallelize a lot of the tasks. And this is what we're doing in the preparation with the AI, creating so-called micro tasks for the crowd worker then to be brought in according to their skill level and according to the size of the crowd that we require for a certain task, to then help with the human in the loop element of it, the AI controlling this part of it. It is then at the end of the day consolidated to create the output required for the systems of the transport logistics companies to then carry on the next process step in the loop. It should behave like a technology plugin, even though they're humans in the background. That's the beauty about collective intelligence. Very low disruption, very simple integration, very high scalability, and very much reliability also on the outcome that is being created by this process. Peter, if you go to the next page for me, please. So Peter mentioned it already, collective intelligence really is a combination of AI and HI. And it's, as I said, it behaves like a technology, but it is really a managed service, meaning it comes with peace of mind for the users of it, in a sense that next to being very, very fast, because of the scalability, it becomes with a guarantee of automation in the sense of accuracy. So the actionable data required for the processes is throughout this process chain of collective intelligence being assured of being of very high quality. There is a very high agility and scalability with the crowd contributors, the human in the loop. So we're not longer talking about the necessity of having long planning periods to worry about the next peak that comes along, or this uncontrollable peaks that we all experience. But it's a matter of having an ability to scale immediately, almost unlimited, with the help of the crowd in the background and having different crowd contributors being plugged into the process as such, depending on the skill and the requirements that are needed there. And all of that combined with high data protection. Whilst we're not talking about personal data very often in data and transport and logistics documentation, there's a lot of other data needs to be protected, especially competitive data. So data protection is key, and any work being handed over, being handled by collective intelligence, needs to be assured the data is not only secure, but is protected for utilization outside of the purpose that it is required for. I go through what microtasking is all about at the end for I hand over again. But we're using different techniques here, such as anonymization, snippeting. You may have, if you've joined us before, you may have heard us talk about before. And this is certainly something that comes in very much into play also for this kind of documents here. But if I go to the next page, so just give you some idea of the kind of services that come together to help in a collective intelligence way for transport logistic documents. It can be at the very beginning of a process. So data labeling is what we call the ability to train in the process, before the process, AI and IDP models. So as you know, the machine learning is really reliant on having clean data. And very often the historical data is not in a format that may be required for such an AI to be then trained to the specifics of an organization. So here, the collective intelligence approach can really bring the benefit of having a very fast, very low intrusive, but also very low cost way of training a high amount of data, either before or even during a process, in a way that the AI models and the AI and automation rates go up constantly and very steadily, very quickly. This goes hand in hand with data validation. So this is all about the exception handling, which may be something that data cannot be recognized, say, for example, because the OCR didn't recognize in handwriting. It wasn't able to be validated because the label couldn't be found. So the crowd work in the collective intelligence can help in that sense as well, and come in only then when an exception is being done to cover those gaps which are remaining. I could talk about a bypass sometimes as well, because sometimes this is not only for a document type that's already automated, but it can also be for document types where automation so far has not been started yet, but it's so there is a gap there in the whole process. So a bypass can also then, of course, grab such a document type while in the background automation may be carried out in order to ensure that the overall automation digitization process is actually able to work with this actionable data. Data capture is pure and simple, really ensuring that data that is on documents is being captured in the right way, either because OCR failed, for example, because it was handwritten. Cursive handwriting is still a challenge for for many systems and in many forms and for many languages, but also if there's an obstruction on a document that cannot be rectified with normalization of the image quality. And of course, the whole aspect of triage. We heard earlier there's many document types, there's many amount of pages being related to a case, and it's important to understand what is what. Where does one document start and end? So classification and document type identification and separation is also part of a collective intelligence model to ensure that all of these tasks will result in the data that is then being utilized in the further steps down the line to ensure a really seamless and fast experience of document processing. If you go to the next page for me, Peter. I want to give you one example of what we talk about microtask and making data secure. And one of the things that we do is we utilize snippeting. So here it's more of a semi-structured dummy file. I have to make sure you realize this is a dummy document, but you recognize it hopefully. It's a C-way bill, and here different data needs to be recognized that can be in many different positions. So of course, C-way bill may not be quite as many variants as maybe a commercial invoice, but overall, any semi-structured document have variants. And what we do is we identify the relevant data with the aid of AI, and we create so-called snippets whenever a human needs to be brought in the loop. If you go to the next page for me, Peter. A snippet, therefore, then is really a small part of a document that is ripped out of context and is one of the ways that we assure data protection and data security in a sense, because this is even an example where you may see more than one part of a document. A real crowd worker being brought into the loop here to aid the process will only see one type of these documents. They may see only the amount of dates, they may see numbers, they may see a name or a town in a sense, but out of context. So if you take every single line here on its own, you would not recognize what is this about. This could be a transfer logistics use case. It could be something completely different. And this is one way with the snippet approach alone, we can ensure that when it comes to data validation and data capture, it is a really compliant process that no one has to worry about how big the crowd is that's being engaged, and it's being utilized here to be brought in the loop to validate data and make it happen. At the same time, as by reducing the complexity by, for example, creating those snippets, you can maybe imagine how easy it is then to run parallel process steps in the sense of having parallel workers supporting this process. So AI and HI in collective intelligence work very closely together, with the AI being in the controlling mode in the sense of ensuring that the context is known, that the context is identified, that the data is being prepared for the human in the loop in such a way that it can be fast and the resulting data is of very high and the highest quality. And in that sense, really making it something that can be plugged in as a bypass to handle exceptions, to train the AI, and really being scaled up and down as needed. So before we go into the Q&A and go a little bit more deeper and with some use cases and some possibilities of collective intelligence, here's just summary of some of the benefits. So we're talking about a managed service approach that brings together AI and HI to support processes, and as they are being automated, or as automation is not 100% reliable or cannot be reliable. And it really brings in speed at scale. So it's something that can be brought in to be scaled up to, for example, handle millions of documents within as little as an hour. it is something that can provide that missing accuracy so that the next process steps on which are relying on really clean data can happen in the way that they are being designed without the worry of how is the data getting there without any delay. It is on demand, supported by human intelligence in the form of the crowd workers that are almost unlimited. In our case of ScaleHub, we have access to over 2 million people. And yeah, I mean 2 million and don't mean 2,000. So it's a very large amount of people that we can bring in to scale with the right skills, of course, that are relevant for document types. So that narrows that down to some extent, obviously. And it brings this near 100% automation. So any language, any document type can suddenly be automated, can be digital, and the data can then be really brought into a digital supply chain process, which also can support an agile data delivery model, such as the one that we explained earlier in your EDI example. I'm quite sure there will be questions from you in the audience, but I would like Peter now to see if we can get some more detail out of our colleague Dave.
Thanks, Susanna. Yeah, this is great. And we have some questions for our SME, Dave Bennett. I don't know if they could pop him up on the screen here. So we have collected some questions over the years, and I'm going to pose these to Dave and get his sort of feedback to give a broader context to the audience. So Dave, are you there?
I'm here, Peter.
Okay, I don't see you on the screen, but we'll just go with it. So the first question we have is, our company has attempted to deploy what we understand was a leading AR and OCR technology, but we still are not achieving the high performance and straight through processing we need. How does collective intelligence solve this issue for me, or how could it solve it for me?
That's a great question, Peter. You know, from my travels in the past to a lot of different transportation logistics companies and supply chain, the largest problem we have in that area is that especially the way bills, commercial invoices, they're not very repetitive. So the layouts are really the same. The data even changes, of course, depending how many shippers might touch an item going from end to end. And so at some point, the AI and OCR model training relies on some kind of consistency with either data, location, layout, format. And the biggest problem in this industry is that there's not much of that to be had if you look at across the chasm of documents. And so with ScaleHub, because the way that we use the human intelligence is the kind of the star of the show, along with our AI and OCR, we're not reliant on solving the AI problem to the nth degree, right? We can process those documents quickly, whether they have handwriting, whether the layouts are different, because anything that we don't pick up on in the AI part of the process, right, our human contributors are going to do that work and obviously be able to read and recognize and carry those snippets forward into a correct data structure. So it's kind of the beauty of the design, which is the core of what this kind of ScaleHub model is, right?
Yep. Okay, thank you. The next one we have is, my company is a large regional trucking carrier focused on both contract and LTL loads. At the end of the day, our drivers return to our 57 warehouse facilities and drop off all of the BOLs and customer delivery docs in our warehouse office, which we pack up and mail to our headquarters overnight for entry into our TMS software for invoice creation. This process is expensive and not automated for us. Is there something Collective Intelligence or ScaleHub offers to help in the interim before we roll out mobile scanning to drivers in the next 18 to 24 months?
Sure. Yeah, that's a common problem for the large regional carriers or national carriers, right? Because they've historically, at the end of the day, after they make their routes and drop all the items off at various places, have a stack of delivery documents or BLLs that they've signed at each customer location to certify that they made the delivery. They go back to the warehouse, and somehow that has to get back to headquarters to the TMS system, right? Because those documents are what basically allows the company to create invoices back to the shippers. And so, probably the easiest approach really is to go get some pretty basic office scanners at each location, and we could just drop those BLL's delivery information right in the scanner end of day. Wouldn't require any work on part of the company's terminal folks. And we at ScaleHub could pick those up from a common network folder, process them all for them, do all the classification, get all the data off of them, return the docs and the data files back to their headquarters TMS system. And at that time, then they're basically ready to upload and create the invoices and any other back office work. So you need to get the paper imaged at the location, which is the quickest way. But then we can handle the rest of the ride, if you will, in ScaleHub to get it all converted into data, with 100% accuracy and get it back to the headquarters. So that would be the best approach. It's even a good backup approach if you're rolling out mobile. Mobile's a great option for a lot of these companies today. But from what I've seen, that the on-ramp for doing the mobile stuff in the trucks, there's some hurdles, change management to get everyone on board. And sometimes even the mobile devices in the environment of inside the truck cabs and out and around is challenging for them. So it's nice to have a nice strategy to run that before you go mobile.
Yeah, have a backup, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I think, kind of follows our talk track earlier about the progression through, and I think it could be super helpful to think about. The next one is we are a company involved in specialty freight in Canada. The collective intelligence approach is interesting. If human intelligence was needed, though, for processing freight docs using with language considerations for French, English, even Spanish, how would that work?
So with ScaleHub, it's pretty amazing technology the way it works. It provides us the ability to take those document snippets, and when we distribute those across the global crowd, we have the ability to segment who receives those for the work tasks, the micro tasks. And so we can segment them by region, by state, by country, by language, and by skill set, because we understand all these variables of the crowd that we use in our managed services model. And
Yep.
so we can select only those people who have the French, Spanish, English skills, and or even other skills that are related to that kind of work, and distribute those tasks just to that crowd. And so that gives us the ability to actually work in pretty much any language across the globe, which is a very unique offer we have, especially for international shipping customers.
Yeah, and we even work in Asian languages, so pretty much any language, I believe, right?
Pretty much any language, correct? Yeah, and we can get the correct micro tasks or snippets, right? Of course, in the native language to the people who can read that language, and then enter it into the appropriate fields in our portal.
Excellent. Okay. So the next one is based on past experiences and investment in intelligent automation technologies, which have proved to reach adequate straight-through processing levels. Does ScaleHub provide some sort of SLA for guaranteeing accuracy, turnaround time, success, that sort of thing?
So yeah, at ScaleHub, we do offer SLAs, Peter, as you know, which is a pretty big deal. Clearly, when you buy traditional software, if you will, historically, you buy it, you set it up, you train it, you hope for the best, get your staff acclimated and trained up. But there's no guarantee of any success in terms of straight through processing or percentage of accuracy and or turnaround time, right? So with ScaleHub, we've solved those issues, which is really important from a business process side. So we will give you an SLA for the turnaround time, meaning the time that we receive the document, the time we deliver you an accurate data file back to your system. We'll give you an accuracy SLA for the quality of the accuracy of the data that we've taken off the documents and put into these data files for you. And so those are really the two things that are the big points, as well as we have virtually unlimited scale, right? So that begs back to the speed and accuracy, right? So everybody wants accuracy, but they want it with speed, and they want it it went everything right together, right? So it doesn't really matter if you could do it really, really fast, if you do sloppy, or if you do it perfect, but it takes you way too long. So we bring the best of both worlds forward, and we put those in our agreements. And so there's nobody left wondering what the expectation is and what success looks like.
Gotcha. Super helpful. Okay, the final one from our set is the idea of transforming our paper-based documents into the EDI and other messaging formats is interesting, as we shared earlier in the flow diagram with your EDI. How does ScaleHub and your EDI work together?
Yeah, so your EDI, as you mentioned, Peter, runs an iPaaS services model, and so they take all of the EDI files from different. It could be shippers or foreign postal services, trading partners, the common carriers, and do the data transformation within their cloud, if you will. So each carrier can get the appropriate data structure, EDI or other messaging platform type data file they need for their particular system. And so you can imagine, as you go across the globe, if a shipment leaves Asia, it's heading to New York, right? It's probably going to touch 4 or 5 or 6 different carriers, container ships, trucking firms, airlines, what have you, in terms of carriers and each one may have a different system. And so they have to have that data with all of the information from the BOL and the commercial invoice as the data file gets converted to match their system, so they can read it and know what to do with it when they put it on their plane or ship or truck. And so that's what your EDI does from a data integration, data transformation. So that solves if you will, the electronic side of the world. But we all know that many of these companies have paper-borne processes still onboarding into in many parts of that process. And so the idea was, because ScaleHub's managed services model is all in the cloud, if you will, as is your EDIs. We now have a perfect marriage from a business model and operational model to put these together. And so any place there is paper in any of these companies, they want to get rid of the paper and get it into a digital format to process. We can take that information for them directly into our ScaleHub managed services model, where we would pass, if you will, the output of our paper processing into a JSON or other data file. That goes into the iPaaS network at your EDI. They transform that into the myriad of different file types that the customer needs, right? Whether it be a carrier or a trading partner or a port. And so we are basically doing the paper conversion to a data file. They take that data file, standardized data file, and they convert it to the appropriate system data file. And they handle all the send and receive acknowledgments on the network to make sure that those packets, messages, and EDI files are all getting to their destination.
Yeah, and that architecture and how we've approached it with them, we are successful with that handshake, and I think it's been a good partnership overall. So thank you for that summary. We have a couple of questions from the audience. One kind of relates to some of the earlier topics above in the earlier questions, but I think it's a good question. One we get regardless of the vertical is, what happens if a document is handwritten and the model or collective intelligence cannot recognize the writings or what's written there? What happens then?
Well, anything that in ScaleHub that is not readable, if you will, from the OCR or AI process is sent to our human crowd, right? The crowd contributors, who obviously, being human beings, can read handwriting very, very well. And this is part of the genius in this process, is that we're not reliant to be successful on the AI and OCR exclusively, like other software offerings, right? There's a number of vendors out there who profess to be, software that has handwriting expertise and does it really well, which could be true. But the fact of the matter is, as the business owner, you really want that data out into a clean data file to send down the line in your BPM or your backend ERP or your other systems, right? So all you want is clean data out, which is what ScaleHub provides. And we can read, of course, handwriting, and again, multiple languages, right? We do work over and have a team over in Tokyo. So a lot of Asian languages we can read. Even the Middle East, we have a lot of business over there, of course, English. So Again, handwriting is not a problem, and in lots of the international languages we can process as well.
Excellent. We have another question that is related to transportation logistics. How does this apply to custom clearance documentation and declarations?
Yeah, that probably would be good to have a post webinar discussion if whoever is asking that question would be up for that conversation. But generally speaking, assuming that the current setup that you have is got some sort of a data level integration with customs and clearance, we would pick up the images from your current system, for example, wherever they're imaged today, and put those into the ScaleHub managed process and deliver that data file back to your internal messaging platform. And so we could do that very quickly because of the size and kind of unlimited scale, the number of workers we have available at any time. So I guess if you think about a scenario of if you had a plane leaving JFK heading to London with for package delivery, what have you, we would pick up those documents. And while the plane was in the air, right, we would process all those in a matter of an hour or two, whatever the time requirement was, we could meet that. Send it back to your network, and then you would have it sent over to the customs house in the UK, which would be ready to roll when the plane lands. So that would be true for, it could be freight forwarders, right? You're doing the freight forwarding from a terminal. It could be the direct carrier ship like that, or of course, container ships or ocean carriers as well, but that trip's a lot longer. So the need for speed there wouldn't be quite as quick.
Excellent. I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you, Dave, for sharing your knowledge and expertise and, providing comment on how this collective intelligence approach works very well and is important, can be important as part of the mix in transportation, logistics, documentation, processing. Thanks very much, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for appreciate it, Peter. One thing I want to add too, just
oh yeah,
which is kind of interesting. So you think about the when you make the accuracy part, not only just because of the pure data, but just from my experience, there was interesting scenarios where these companies are processing hundreds of thousands of packages a day. If you make an error on the address of even one digit, for example, right, that means that box, that shipment's going to some other location, the wrong zip code, the wrong recipient, right? And so that's a big problem, because then those companies have to go find those packages, right, get them back and resend them to the correct person, which is timely and costly for them. So again, the data accuracy here is paramount, which is why you need to have humans in the process to make sure that it gets done properly. So just
it's a good note to leave on. I mean, it's kind of what we were, exactly what we were talking about at the start, which is the risks of having inaccurate data, and then also even a small percentage of those errors can cause massive, cost escalation and different problems within a transportation logistics organization, or for the companies generally. So it's a good final thought to for your session here. So thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
all right. Thank y'all.
Right. We have. I think we can quickly just go through some of the future vision. Susanna, do you want to cover that? I think it's kind of an interesting way that we're approaching computer vision and how ScaleHub and collective intelligence can be used in additional ways. Susanna, go ahead, please.
Yeah, we'll try to do it in the next 3 or 4 minutes maximum, right? So far we talked about documents and paper documents and the part they play in the business process. But there are different use cases where the image, a photo, a video stream is something that can actually support a business of transport logistics organizations. And this is something that we have been focusing on in the last 12 to 18 months, especially working also with some universities to really think, how can we bring this collective intelligence approach into this world and make a difference, right? So the whole promise that we bring again is that accuracy, is that speed, is that scalability, especially to make a difference here. And what we're talking about is really to support different use cases. Like, for example, we're working in the warehouse area And for example, working with imagery or with streams of video to look at palette management, so space management in a wider sense, but also inventory taking. There could be, there are different use cases which are more in the area of like harbor management, if you want to call it that. So like container spaces. So again, the whole process there in many harbors, in many occasions, is quite a manual process, but with the aid of video and imagery, again, there's something that can be done there on the spot, and optimize where it's being in use, really the logistics around it. And of course, the logistics and transportation sector is the one where autonomous driving will be realized, first. And with that comes a lot of labeling of data. So there will be there's drone delivery. There is, of course, warehouse machinery. There is the real autonomous driving out on the road, which all requires a lot of data. And with the aid of the collective intelligence approach, so where you need to have that, again, that human in the loop to support the great AI technologies which are out there, is something that we are focusing on. Again, if you go to the next page for me, Peter, just give you one example. So this is just a very, simplified example of what maybe an image will look like, and then AI will recognize certain aspects already. I mean, it's recognized the people which look like avocados down there, right? So I think I would have thought that it's challenging there, but it didn't recognize this the item in the top there in the red. And this is something that then the human in the loop can come into. And we're doing something very similar in this snippeting kind approach, this sort of microtasking approach. And really, if you go to the next page, simplifying the task for our crowd workers. So there very often are simple yes, no, what is it kind of questions, like in this case here, very much clearly identified. This is what we're talking about. What is it in the experience that you have as a skilled worker in a sense? Can you really help with the process to fill the gaps, and of course bring the loop back to the AI model then to be trained? We will have we go to more detail in one of our future webinars on this topic, because there's many different use cases across many different sectors, and it's also something which is quite nice to be seen. So we don't have the time now to take any questions on that. Just really stay focused, keep with us, or whatever you call it. Sorry, my English left me then. Stay with us in that sense. Watch us. We keep you posted on it, and maybe follow us on have a look on our webpage and our posts on this. There's some very interesting use cases coming out almost every week.
There is one question that I can answer quickly here, which I think is a good question that somebody posted. You mentioned having a crowd for data validation. What are the requirements for being part of your crowd? So the crowd approach that we have, is really would fall under the gig economy in a certain sense for certain aspects of it. So if you're talking about the snippets, as Susanna showed in that example, those snippets go to worldwide workers that are part of trusted platforms, and we publish those rates, right? The bigger topics would be specialist crowds, and we can work with specific groups of people that are certified. They could be companies such as BPOs or other groups, and we would work as a partnership with those groups, and they would be part of our bigger network. And we have many, many companies in that network. So just wanted to address that one. I think it's a good question that, clearly somebody resonates what we're doing, and I appreciate the question. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time with us today. Hopefully the collective intelligence ideas and concepts, and that term in particular, is sinking in wider. And I want to thank Dave and Susanna for all the good content. Look forward to seeing everybody soon in our next webinar. Thank you very much.